As always, working with Mr. Scorsese is a very humbling and unique experience.
Everyone was sort of fiending for this role. I got down, I suppose, to the final five, and there was like a last sort of day.
Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't speak unless he has something to say. In an industry overflowing with sound bites and spin, his silence has always been its own kind of statement. So when he agreed to a rare, in-depth interview, a retrospective on fame, manipulation, and Hollywood's shifting power dynamics, no one expected it to spark the unraveling of one of the industry's longest-standing illusions. Toward the end of the conversation, Leo was asked a pointed question. Had he ever watched someone's public persona drift wildly from who they really were behind the scenes? He didn't respond right away, but when he did, he didn't hold back. Without naming her, he spoke of a woman from his past, someone who wielded affection like a weapon, who turned the media into her mirror and power into performance. He never said Blake Lively, but he didn't have to. The timeline, the phrasing, the unmistakable weariness in his voice. It was clear. He was finally ready to reveal the truth behind the woman whose fall from grace had been years in the making. He spoke, calmly, not with anger, but with the kind of tired honesty that comes from living too long with a truth no one else dared to say aloud. He described a chapter in his early 30s, marked by a relationship with someone who was effortlessly charming, impossibly composed, and endlessly calculated. Things moved fast, too fast. She always knew how to be photographed, how to craft the perfect quote, how to make every public moment look unplanned, even when it was scripted down to the second. It started with small things, coordinated paparazzi shots, handwritten notes, sent to stylists and producers, career moves that seemed sudden, until you realized they were perfectly timed.
Composed and deeply strategic. He talked about how quickly things moved, how this woman seemed to know exactly how to be photographed, how to give just the right quote, how to make every public appearance feel spontaneous when it was anything but. It started with small things, coordinated paparazzi appearances, handwritten notes to stylists and producers, sudden career shifts that just happened to align with rising media attention. At first, Leo chalked it up to professionalism, maybe even ambition. But slowly, it became clear that the relationship was being managed, not lived. He said, "You wake up one day and realize you're not in a relationship. You're in a press release." Fans listening knew exactly who he meant. Blake Lively, the once shy gossip girl breakout who had become Leo's very public girlfriend in 2011, and who, in that short stretch of time, had transformed her entire career narrative through carefully orchestrated headlines and perfectly timed appearances. It was all so flawless, and that's what made it so fake. For years, there had been rumors that Leo and Blake's relationship was never as passionate as the press made it seem. Now, Leo was confirming what many suspected. That much of it was a performance, for her benefit. He talked about how public dates were scheduled with photographers already in place, how photo captions appeared online before they had even left the restaurant, how her team would send wardrobe suggestions for him to approve before an event. He said it felt less like dating and more like participating in a storyline. The final straw came when he realized that major outlets were receiving exclusive insider quotes about their weekend plans, before those plans were even discussed. It wasn't just invasive, it was orchestrated. Leo admitted he played along for a while, mostly out of politeness, but eventually, the disconnect became unbearable. He said, "There's only so long you can pretend before pretending becomes your whole life." After they split, the narrative was clean, respectful, polite. But now, years later, Leo was revealing the cracks that had always existed beneath the surface, and the calculated nature of a public persona built on appearances.
Wow! Blake! Beautiful!
This dress was one of the most critical sort of fashion moments of Gossip Girl.
What Leo described next was something only someone at his level could truly recognize: the machinery of a brand in motion. He talked about how Blake's team worked not just to promote her, but to protect a version of her that didn't really exist. He said her team controlled headlines with precision. If a story came out that wasn't flattering,
Within 12 hours, there'd be a glowing profile in a lifestyle magazine. If her co-star started trending, her team would leak a carefully staged, candid family moment to reclaim the spotlight. But what disturbed Leo most wasn't the control, it was the ease. The way people around her adjusted without question. Brands, directors, stylists, they all bent to her narrative without a word. She built an image of warmth and grace while quietly editing people out behind the scenes. That, he said, was when he truly understood how fame could be weaponized. Not through scandals or outbursts, but through quiet redirection, subtle edits. Charm used not to invite, but to exclude. Once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. Leo spoke, without bitterness, but the weight in his voice was unmistakable. He said assistants, co-stars, even journalists had whispered about her. The mood shifts, the staged press moments, the quiet control. But no one said anything out loud, because Blake sold. She was elegance wrapped in relatability, safe, profitable. And in this industry, no one challenges what they can monetize. He admitted he'd believed it at first. Wanted to. The version of her on red carpets and in interviews was so carefully crafted, so effortlessly convincing. But the truth was colder, sharper, transactional. It wasn't just a fall from grace. It was a fall from belief. Because once you stop believing the image, all that's left is the performance. After the breakup, there was no drama, no headlines, but the silence said enough.
what it can monetize. He admitted that even he had been fooled at first. That the version of her presented in interviews and red carpets was so convincing that you wanted to believe it. But the truth was different, colder, sharper, and a lot more transactional. It wasn't just a fall from grace, it was a fall from belief. Because once you stop believing the image, all that's left is the performance. What came after their breakup was quiet, but telling. Leo said that, in the weeks following their split, he was approached by people who had never spoken up before. People who had worked with Blake. People who had been treated like background extras in their own careers. They didn't vent. They just shared. A makeup artist who had been fired mid-campaign after Blake requested a different aesthetic. A co-star whose scenes were trimmed after test audiences responded more positively to Blake's character. A publicist who was instructed to soft cancel stories that included other actresses Blake didn't want associated with her name. None of it was overt. It was all polite, professional, deadly. Leo realized that the silence surrounding her wasn't just fear, it was exhaustion. People were tired of pretending that someone so carefully crafted was also deeply kind, tired of clapping for an illusion. And now that illusion was finally cracking.
Z has a background in dance, so that's always a pleasure.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. No! Are you
And it could be Timothy or Timmy or Doug or
It's
Alan.
Timotei.
Hey, that's what it was supposed. My parents cursed me with that.
Leo said he knew the tide was turning when younger talent started pushing back. He watched as actors like Zendaya, Florence Pugh, and Timothée Chalamet stopped playing the image game. They didn't flatter for access. They didn't smile through betrayal. They just existed, authentically, openly, and with visible discomfort for the kind of manipulation Blake had once mastered. He said there wasn't a single moment that destroyed her image. It was a series of reveals. The quiet removal of co-stars, from press tours, the sudden ending of partnerships, the way stylists and editors stopped reposting her content without explanation. Her public image didn't implode, it evaporated. Because once you start seeing the patterns, they're impossible to ignore. Leo didn't revel in Blake's fall.
He spoke with empathy, but he didn't blur the truth. The issue was never ambition, Leo said. It was control. The compulsion to dominate every frame, every headline, every story, even if it meant erasing others in the process. He acknowledged the shift unfolding now. A new era where vulnerability matters more than vanity, where transparency is valued over polish, and where artists no longer feel the need to manipulate their surroundings just to matter. Blake's era, he said, stood for something. An industry obsessed with image over honesty, where silence was a shield for the powerful and charm could be used to mask cruelty. But that era is ending. Not with scandal, with exposure. Leo's words weren't loud, but they were final. For over a decade, Blake Lively had crafted an empire, a brand of elegance, empowerment, and curated warmth. She was untouchable, worshipped, marketable, until now. Because when someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, someone who saw the truth from the inside, quietly confirms what so many only dared to whisper, the illusion begins to crack. Her fall wasn't explosive. It was gradual. And it was earned. Because in the end, no amount of polish can protect a persona built on silence, exclusion, and the meticulous control of perception. And the truth? The truth doesn't need to be managed.